Hey guys, what's good? I'm back. I'm kind of tired right now, but the grind never stops and you got to keep going. So, in this video, we are going to be doing unauthenticated AWS IAM principles enumeration. So, the main focus or topics to note is it talks about, or this lab pretty much focuses on enumerating principles through while you're unauthenticated, but it shows you three types of ways to do this. And when I mentioned principles, the main things are users and roles. And the three ways that are taught, well, there's four, which is through the login page, but that could be, it could be false positives, but we'll get to that later. So the three main ways would be through role trust policy, S3 bucket policy, and Lambda function. So these are the three ways. And again, to point out, we're doing roles and users, which is main things. Groups can also help. We can do that, but it's just not as useful. So we'll do this the manual way first. We're going to start off with IAM role trust policy. And we're going to do it from AWS console as well as AWS CLI. We're going to do it through both ways. And yeah, and then we're going to touch upon tools that can do that for us, which would be Paku and AWS some user finder. So the manual way, then tools that can do this, and then we're going to assume a role, which we're going to find, and Paku will automatically check whether we can assume the role or not after it discovers it. That's good over there. Obviously, if you're going to try to assume the role, you're going to have to use this account, the one that they give and not our own AWS account. But we'll get to that in a second. So we can close this off. Tools, assuming role to get the flag, and then the other two ways to actually find users and roles. This is more of a manual way as well. Also, there's this AWS some user finder can find users using the S3 bucket policy way. But for Lambda function, we'll just touch upon it like a bit or in a manual case scenario. So yeah, let's get into this. We'll start off with IAM role trust policy and go to the AWS console. And here I am. Obviously, we're in an unauthenticated scenario, so we're going to use our own account. And we're going to go ahead and go to IAM. Let's go to roles here. So let's create a role. We're going to go to the custom trust policy that we're going to create. And from here, let's put this role that we have over here. So we're denying assume access to this role. Admin, right? Okay. So we're denying assume role permissions to this role. You can also change this to a user if you want. In this account ID, this account is the account given over here, the target AWS account. And we can do this through our own account. And the reason is because AWS allows us to specify other accounts using this account ID in the policy, in our permissions or settings. And from this, it will error out if this specific role exists in this account. So let me demonstrate that. So we can go to next over here, and let's go to create role. All right, let's call this role test. And we'll notice that invalid principal in policy, this role does not exist in this account. But if we click here, edit, and we change this to, I think role is batch, it will go ahead and actually work. We can do the same thing for user. Actually, let me just, I think we can just keep it at role. But yeah, so next here, it's the same thing, whether you change it to a user or not, it's going to do the same thing, but I'm just going to stick with role for now. And create role, and there we go, it works. This basically means that this bash role exists in the account ID or target AWS account ID. Now, the next thing to note is through the CLI way. And if we're going to do it this way, we're going to first create our access keys and stuff. So go to security credentials here, scroll down, and just click on this over here, create access key. And although this is not the best practice, we're still going to go ahead and do it because it would have all the permissions we need and it's just going to make our life easier. And remember, every type of enumeration that's done through our own account, it's not the logs that are made is only going to be made on our account. So it's more stealthy in that sense. It's best not to use any, the client's account because then they're going to get all those, flags and all these, they're just going to monitor all the types of error messages that are going to be received. We can go ahead and create this, and we have this over here. And remember, this can only be viewed or downloaded once. This is the only time that you can do it. Let's just take this AWS configure. We're going to zoom in as well. And let's go ahead and run this command. So before we do that, we got to create a policy.json file. Go ahead and just make it here, policy.json file. And in this file, we're going to use the same policy over here. And this time, we'll change user to something that doesn't exist first. And the user we can do is Paul. I don't think that exists. So now let's go ahead and run this command. The role should be created, right? So we should have already created that role. Go ahead and just put the role name here. And what was it? I think it was role trust. And the role with role trust cannot be found. Let's go ahead and check what it was. Role test. And there we have it. The principal doesn't exist, or the invalid principal in policy. Let's go ahead and change that to proper user and change this to, I think his name is Brian. I think that's how you spell it. And let's see if this works. So no error message means that this user exists. That is pretty much it. Go here and we can probably view the trust relationships, and it's been changed to Brian. So yeah, that's for the manual way of doing it. Now let's get to some tools that can do this for us. So the first tool that we're going to use is Paku. So let's go ahead and just write that here. And I'm going to go and click 0 to create a new session. Would you like to name the session? Let's just call it our account. We can just do set keys. Let's click enter here, and we can go ahead and copy this. And copy this. Now from here, we can go ahead and run this command over here. And it's kind of doing the same thing. We're going to have to give it a role that is made. We're going to call this role test. Role test. And the account ID of the target account that we want to enumerate. And just press enter. And it will go ahead and do this for us. So this takes a while sometimes. So I'm going to pause the video so you guys don't get bored. You just have to sit and look at the screen for a whole long time. But yeah, I'll be right back then when this is over. All right, I'm back. And we can see over here that some of the users are being found. Brian, Cloud9, CloudWatch, and all these users exist. So that is done over there. Let's go ahead and do the roles. Let's try to enumerate the roles now. And let's just cancel out of this. And run IAM roles and the role name that we have. And we got to change this to role test. It needs one that exists. So role test and then account ID again. And we'll let this run. And again, I'm going to pause it and we'll be right back. I know it's going to show a bit over here, but it's going to take time because it's going to try to assume the roles as well. So yeah, be right back. All right, so it took quite a while, but it's done now. And you can see that the role bash that we were previously trying to find has worked, or we found it now. We can see that it was also checking to see if any of these roles can be assumed for temporary credentials, but none of them worked. So what we're going to do now is we're going to exit out of this, start it again, and I'm going to create a new session and call this other account. And we're going to use these. We're going to use the access key ID of the account that's given over here. So copy this, paste it here, do the same with this. And there. So now we'll go ahead and run the same command. And I believe they have a different type. Oh yeah, the role name provided in this case is going to be this. It's already given to us. So yeah, we'll go ahead and just click enter. And it's going to start enumerating, doing the same thing, but this time it's going to actually be able to assume a role. So we'll let this run and we'll just open another tab. Let's zoom in and let's use the other tool. And in this case, that is AWS Some User Finder. So let's go to that directory. All right, just go here. And I'm going to do source bin activate. And there we go. So I create a list of usernames over here. And we're actually going to edit that. Let's do username edit. And we'll call one of them batch, Brian. And we'll do Alex. Other names. Cyber and Mage. Sure, let's go ahead. We got permission denied. Just copy this. And there we go. So this one is specifically only be able to enumerate users. And we can go ahead and first we're going to use this, which is a Python, or this thing over here, update assume policy generator. It's going to create a policy using our default credentials in our .aws area, this default credential, which is our own account. It's going to create a policy over there. So first let's run that. And it's okay, we gotta provide this actually. So let's go ahead and copy this. And it's been generated. Let's go check it out over here in policies. So it's going to be in roles actually. Okay. So let's see what it's done over here actually. The necessary policy is already generated with the name. Okay. So if you go to policy here, and we can go here for user name. What's it called again? So here is the policy. And it's going to keep playing around with this until it finds the user. So let's go ahead now and do this command. And in this case, we provide our username, the target account that we're targeting, and the policy that was made. And here we're just going to change it to our actual secret key and access key values. And before we begin, the I that's at the beginning over here, this represents, uses IAM policy modification for enumeration. So it's that. And over here, you can see it also has S3 bucket enumeration method. But we'll get to that. So let's go ahead and just click enter. And the role provided is not valid. Valid role. Okay. So now we're getting some errors. All right then. Policies, username, 3, and it should be working actually. I think what happened is that, okay, I understood. So I've ran the script before, and I believe that's why, and the first thing that the script tried to do was make a policy for it. And once it found the policy, it did not create the role for it. We can go ahead and delete this. And there we go. And we'll run it again, and it will make the role and the policy at the same time, hopefully. I think that is actually the solution. So update. New policy and role named user enumeration policy was created. Great. So now that actually worked. So if you go to roles over here, refresh, here it is. The role and the policy that we saw before is actually attached to it. Should be attached here. Trust. Right over here. So let's go ahead and let's go ahead and run the same command as before. And this is the role name, the RN over here. Converting policy back to default. 0 found. Let's check username again. Okay, I think I spelled Brian wrong. Sudo nano username. Brian. Put that there and run it. And here we have Brian, which was found. So yeah, that's how to use this tool over here. Now let's go back to Pwned and see whether it's done or not. Nope, it is not done. So I'm waiting till this assumes the role so I can show you which role we could assume, and then from there we'll try to get the flag. Let's just deactivate this. Take a look at this real quick. So this is done with. And there we have it. It actually assumed the role administrator, which worked, and it gave us some credentials for it. So now let's go ahead and log in with this credential. Go over here and do AWS configure, and I'm going to call the profile admin. This is that. This is here. And we can do perfect. So let's go ahead. Actually, we can just do it over here. Cat credentials, and we'll see it went to the wrong one. Credentials. This. Go ahead and do profile admin. Okay, credential, and there we go. So everything looks good. Let's just test this out real quick using this command. And just do profile admin. And we are now the assumed role administrator. So yeah. All right, now let's go ahead and see the roles attached to this. One of the things we can do is use this command over here to list attached role policies. And as we know, the role name is administrator, but this does not work. We have access denied here. We could try to look for this list role policies, and I believe this is looking for inline policies. Sorry, it's looking for all policies. List role policies did not work. And we'll go ahead and just do this command here, which is getting the role information. And one of the things we need to look for is, call it descriptions. Descriptions can contain information about the role, which can help us. And in this case, the description says manages IT infra and IT admin HL bucket. So this bucket name is over here. So we can see if we can enumerate things inside this bucket. Let's do ls and just do the bucket name, shouldn't be good enough. Profile admin. And we see that the flag is in there, so we can just do copy, change this to S3, do flag.txt, and we want it in this directory. And there we go. This is the flag.txt. I'm obviously not going to cat it or open it, and we can just move on. So the next way that we can enumerate roles and user is through S3 bucket policy. And we'll go ahead and do it from here first, our own console. And let's go to S3 and let's create a bucket. We'll call this bucket test. And we'll just click create bucket for now. Okay. Okay, can now contain uppercase. Test, and we'll call this 2025. The name is taken. So let's go ahead and just do bucket Pwned labs bucket test. And there we have it. Let's go here and let's actually check some details here. Perfect. Let's go to permissions. And in permission, we can see that there is no policy displayed over here. So this is where we're going to do our stuff. Let's click edit. Let's copy this and paste it in there. We are going to change this thing to our bucket name, because if we don't do that, even though we can see that this is the right user, I don't think this is supposed to work. Save changes. And there we have it. Policy has invalid resource. So we can have to change this to Pwned labs bucket test. And let's change this to admin. This should fail. And we'll have another error message, which is invalid principal and policy. And to make this work, we just change this to batch. Perfect. So now we know that this role exists in this account ID. Now let's go ahead and do this using a file. So using our own AWS account using the CLI. Let's create this file over here. And just keep a different name for it. And we can paste this, and we're going to get the same type of error. So Pwned labs bucket test. Okay. And when we're doing this, we got to change the bucket to our own bucket. So Pwned labs. Oh, what's it called again? Pwned labs bucket test. Yeah. Bucket test. And it's going to use our default credentials. And over here it says invalid principal and policy. So our default credentials is again our own AWS account. So yeah, we can change this to batch and it'll work, but we're just going to go on to the next step, which is we're doing this through AWE some user finder. So let's go back to that directory. Opt. And source bit activate. And in this case, we just need our bucket to exist. And for B, we'll write our bucket name, which is Pwned labs bucket test. The username file and the account ID we want to attack. And just change this. And this S3 over here is to specify that we're using the S3 method, the bucket method. And it'll go ahead and it should hit Brian once again. So they found the user Brian. And yeah, again, this tool will only be able to find users, so not roles. For roles, we would use Paku. And the last way that we can do it, or the way that I'm going to be showing, is Lambda function. So we're just going to create a function first. Let's go to Lambda over here. And we'll just create a normal function. Pwned labs function. Just create this. Perfect. We go to configuration here and then permissions. And then in permissions, we can then do add permission here, and it will allow us to enter the principal. So in this case, we'll use this one here, which doesn't exist, admin role. And we'll just a random one and a random one here. Okay. Just call my custom statements. And there we have it. The provided principal was invalid. And I'm just going to go ahead and do this the user way as well. All is also invalid. Let's go ahead and just change this to Brian. And we can see that it worked. Now the AWS CLI method is we can just copy this command. And over here, we're going to use our default credentials as well. So no profiles attached to this command. Action, we can use any of them. So we'll just use that. Function name is Pwned labs function. Statement ID, anything, and then the principal here, which should fail. We must specify a region by running. Okay. Let's go ahead and do that. Credentials. Just region like this. And let's go ahead and find the region that this exists in, which is US East 1, US East 1. And I don't think that's the right way to do it. I think it's AWS region. Okay, yeah. The provided principal was invalid. Never mind, this worked. So let's change this to a role that exists, which is batch. And there we have it. It worked. So this was the error message, and this was the success message. So this role exists in this AWS account ID. So yeah, the other way is through the login page, but obviously it has some limitations, such as I believe when you're logging in, like don't take my word for it, but when you're logging in and it allows you, or your email is valid, so when you're logging into your root account, go ahead and just show it very plainly. Just do this. Yeah, when you're logging in and you're signing in with your root user email, sometimes what happens is even if that email exists and it doesn't exist in AWS, but perhaps it just exists in Amazon, it's just an Amazon account, it will still allow it to pass through, but the only difference is going to be in the font of it. I think that's what I understood from it. But yeah, don't take my word for it, but just putting it out there. If you guys want to go check it out yourself, that's up to you guys. But yeah, that's it for this video. Take care and see you for the next one.